and also how to make a graph. So let's go back to that defaulting customer data set. We have two categorical variables. One is the payment type, the other is the default status. I should probably get some variable labels in for default status. I didn't do that earlier. So the value 1 is a default, and the value 0 is a non-default. All right, now that we've got that in, how are we going to study the relationship between the way they pay their bills and whether or not they default within the first 3 months? Well, we'll do a crosstab. So to do a crosstab, go up to Analyze Descriptives. We've been here last week. We did frequencies last week. We did Explore. Let's go to the next one, which is crosstabs. Now I'm going to put payment type into the rows. It doesn't really matter. And we'll put default status into the columns. Now, one more thing. Let's go into cells. Cells enables us to request various percentages. We can get row percents, column percents. The total percents are those from the joint distribution. Well, what do we want? What's under our control more than anything else here is the payment type. We could include incentives to try to get people to use one payment method versus another. So I'm going to regard this as our independent variable. The default status is up to the customer. Since I put payment type into the rows, and that's my independent variable, I'm going to get row percents. Go hit continue, go hit OK. And we get our crosstab. And so, for example, 24% of people who pay with book default. 76% of people who pay with book don't default. 16% of people who pay with statement default. Only 1% of people who use checking EFT default. About 2% of people who use credit card EFT default. So there's a pretty strong dependence here. It appears that this book method is not very good. The two EFT methods are very good. Statement is not very good either. All right. Crosstabs are one approach to finding these percents. I'd now like to show you another way of getting these percents. Sometimes it's easier to use crosstabs, sometimes it's easier to use this other approach. So we're going to go back to Analyze. This time we're going to skip descriptives and go down to Compare Means. And we're going to go to Means. Now, remember that the mean of a 0-1 variable is the percentage of ones. We went over that last week. So it makes sense to compute the mean of this default status variable, which is a 0-1 variable. So I'm going to copy default status into the dependent list. That's my dependent variable. And let's bring payment type into the independent list. So we're going to say find the means of default status for every level of payment type. If we go into options, you get a list of all the stuff that it's going to compute for you. We really don't care about standard deviations. I'll get that out. All these other things that we talked about last week and more are available to be computed. So I got rid of standard deviation. It's somewhat not horribly important, but kind of nice to do that. Now if you do this, you're going to get the same percentages. So again, 24% of people who pay with book default, 16% of people who pay with statement default, and then 1 or 2% who use EFT default. All right, let's say we wanted to make a graph now. How would we make that graph? Well, we'll go up to Graphs, go to Legacy Dialogues, and then pick a graph. Let's do bar charts. And we'll do a simple bar chart. Now we get this menu. What is our category? Well, we're going to put the independent variable on the category axis. So that's the payment type. And what do the bars represent? The default is to give us the number of cases. So this is just the bar charts that we had back in chapter 3. We don't want that now. Instead, we want another statistic, such as the mean. All right, now I'm going to copy the default status into here, and you'll see that SPSS indicates it's going to compute the mean of default. What that means then is it's going to be like those row percents. Go hit OK, and we now have a bar chart that shows those 3%. So people who pay with book are much more likely to default than statement or either of the EFT methods. Okay, you should now go practice these skills with some of the exercises from this week.